Hey, welcome back to another installment of our demo videos in the StringsPop Teacher Hub. Today we're going to be talking about how to save time by using various recording strategies and programs and software and apps. And just like we teach our students how to play Twinkle from their very first lessons, recording strategies are skills that can be built with a pedagogy. So I'm going to walk you through what I think to be the pedagogy of recording skills for teenagers or for tweens or for whatever group you are trying to target this skill toward. The recording skills of making your pop arrangement are slightly different than your music arranging skills that we covered in the last video. In the last video, we talked about how to build the bass line, how to fill in the inner voices, how to create the melody line that works. In the other side of creating the music video is the recording skills that you need. Primarily, you need to be able to know how to record yourself with a metronome and play along with previously recorded versions of yourself. And you need to practice doing that in various combinations of voices. Can you record in just your bass line, for example, and then play along with it with your melody part? Can you record in your bass line and play along in the inner voices? Can you record your melody and play along the inner voices with it? So if we are looking at a four-voice arrangement, if we have a melody and a bass line and two inner voices, we want every possible combination of one voice at a time, or two voices together, or three, and ultimately four. So some of the platforms you can use to try this self-recording, it's as easy as using the selfie cam on your phone or on the voice memo app. In fact, with my teen students, I always have them try out the parts they're creating in the voice memo app first so that they get a sense of what they sound like and they can play along with themselves. So we'll practice recording in just the bass line into their voice memo app, and then they play it back where they can hear either in headphones, that's another important thing, earbuds or headphones, and then they hear themselves on the bass line in one ear and play their melody along with them in the other. So your selfie cam, your voice memo app, an Apple product that is popular and easy for my teens to use is GarageBand, but there is beyond that, beyond the basic recording platforms like that are available on most phones or tablets or whatever, there are actually recording programs that you can use. Some of them are scaled back versions of professional products like Logic and Pro Tools would maybe have a scaled back version that you can go to, but I wouldn't start there. There's a program called Audacity, which is available. It's open source. It's created by engineers and designers who are kind of volunteers for the program. That's available, I think, widely across all platforms, and that's a sort of introductory basic platform where you can create multi-layered recorded tracks and line them up and sync them together. So I'll list some of those platforms in the comments so that you have links to how to access them. One of the things I like in my students' recordings, sometimes we spend a couple of weeks working on just one arrangement. Sometimes they bust through the whole arrangement in one day. But as part of that recording process, we create what I call scratch tracks. Just like if you're solving a math equation on a piece of scratch paper, it's not necessarily the final product, and you might have squiggly, swirly lines all over the place. A scratch track is just a way to get out your idea and record it and hold it somewhere so that you don't misplace it till the next time you want to work on it. And then you can play it back to yourself and layer on other scratch parts along with it. So a scratch track is a great way to create the harmonic and the rhythmic bed of the arrangement. I try to lay down my most rhythmic part first, usually the bass line, or sometimes in the inner voices, something that has a percussive effect. Sometimes that's mimicking the drums or the rhythm guitar, and quite often the keyboard part is one of the first tracks to lay down, and it's very rhythmic. Playing along with a metronome is an important skill we're going to talk about in just a second. After that, after I've laid down my most rhythmic parts or the harmonic moving parts, then turning off the metronome and weaving the melody in and out of that stable bedrock of harmony and rhythm can be really fun and easy. The melody tends to work better if you're not playing along with a metronome, but if you're playing along with yourself. So if you've used the metronome to record in the bass line and maybe some of the rhythmic harmonic moving parts, turning the metronome off and adding your melody is kind of like the cherry on top. Kind of fun. Some of the equipment that you'll need to try this experiment, you will probably want to use a metronome of some kind. I have good old Dr. Beat here. If you're recording onto your phone or onto a tablet, you may not want to use your metronome from that same device. So you may want a second metronome that works with your recording program. So a metronome and then a recording device. And so now that I've explained those components to how to create a basic recording, I'm actually just going to demonstrate it for you. So if you came for the explanation, that's it. If you came to watch how it's done, that's starting now. So if I were to go to create my very bare bones scratch track of, let's take the My Girl arrangement that we worked on last week, I'm first going to figure out what my metronome setting is going to be because I want to put that bass line in very first. So in the Dr. Beat, I'm going to tap it out. Dun, 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 dun. And right about 108, I think, is what I used. The original source recordings of old-timey pop songs, the timing of their tempo fluctuates. It's kind of one of the charm of those old songs. More modern pop music is locked into a click track when they record it. But from 50 years ago, or even more recently than that, they weren't as beholden to the time. So you may find that if you're trying to set a metronome tempo for a song from a while back ago, you may find that there's a range of acceptable metronome markings. So if my Girl is happening at 108, that's the tempo I want my bass part to go in. Normally, if I were recording the bass part, I would be doing that with my earbuds in and the metronome only clicking in my ear. But I want you to hear what this is like I want you to hear what I'm hearing. So I'm going to let my metronome be out in open air. Sorry, I know that's obnoxious. Takes you right back to the college practice room. But hey, metronome skills, way to sneak those in to the teenagers. This is an awesome way to teach them how to play on the beat with the metronome and record it to see if they got it right. So I'm just going to use my voice memo app. We can switch to the Apple here. Here's my new recording. Here's my time. I tell the students that it's best to kick off with a few beats. 1, 2, T. Get the idea? All right, we'll stop that. Now that I have my bass line in there, I can back it up. This is just an approximation of what my bass line is going to be. I can back it up and I can figure out how I might layer the other parts along with it. So now I'm going to think about that inner voice, that viola line. And this is just for me hearing how my arrangement is coming. This is not the permanent product. So you'll hear on the recording that the metronome was recorded in. If you were using your metronome in your earbuds, you would only have heard that metronome to record along with yourself. It wouldn't be recorded into the final product. So this is just for demonstration purposes. So we have now my track running, but not sharing audio. Sorry about that. I'm going to disconnect it and play it in the air. You can go back to the camera here. So if I were here, I'm this. You can hear my bass line on my voice memo. I'll back that up. 1, 2, T. There's the bass line, staying steady with the metronome. And I can practice my other voices and my inner lines along with the bass line or the melody part that I've previously recorded. After I've tried recording in the bass line, I could play the inner voice along with it. I could play the melody along with it. I could record in the melody and try a second harmony part. I could record in my melody and then try a counter melody. And this is where some of the arranging skills really come out to play, because if you hear your melody and you hear your bass line, the creativity of the teens sometimes takes over from that, and they hear the inner voices doing other things. This is even before you've come into the recording program at all. So that's creating the scratch track first. When you're ready to lay down, you figured out your parts, you know how they work, and you're ready to lay them down together, the one app I will happily show you today is the Acapella app. This one has a built-in metronome feature. It has a built-in photo collage, video collage component, and you can set the monitor so that it's on or off to hear the other parts. You can set the metronome on or off to hear the other parts. Unfortunately, this is only available on Apple products. So if you have an iPhone or an iPad or an iPod Touch, this is one app that works. There are other apps similar to this. I'm thinking of the parent app to Acapella. Mixchord is the company that creates that. And there's a Pick Play Post app, which I think is available on some Google devices. But I'm going to share the iPad again, and this is my Acapella app. It's going to ask me first to select the layout I want. So we'll go with this 4-part. I'm going to make, for the free version, you can use up to 30 seconds for your track. For the paid version, you have longer options there. We're going to start with just a 30-second track. Here it gives me the 4 windows in my grid. And so when I'm ready to record my bass line, I'm going to click that bottom window. Oh, there I am. Hey, time to record the bass line. Here's the little metronome in the corner, shows us what time we want to go. I don't prefer to have a ding, dong, 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 ding, dong, dong, dong. I don't prefer having a demarcation on 1, so I almost always use the 1-4. The 1-4 is just a steady click, a woodblock click. And I can change the tempo on the slider. This is going to be available on every track, and all the tracks will sync up to the same tempo. There we go. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to have that play while recording. I want that on. Come down here. I'm going to also set my microphone settings. Over here, the little blue button on the side. Do I want the monitor on? Meaning, do I want to hear myself in the earbuds as I'm recording? And when I'm layering in 2 or 3 parts, if I'm hearing the bass line and the middle line and I still need to hear myself, I do turn on the monitor. And attaching headphones, either Bluetooth headphones or corded headphones, works to whatever device you happen to be using. The mic input gain is a feature that has to do with how sensitive the microphone is to the sound source you're recording. If the microphone is right next to your mouth, for instance, you have the potential to blow out the capacity of the mic if it's set too hot. You can play with this setting depending on your microphone and depending on your instrument and how far away your microphone is from your instrument. I've noticed that if I'm wearing my earbuds and the microphone is right around my lapel, I usually like that mic input gain right about the center. If I'm recording from something farther away, like if I'm using the earbuds and I'm recording, say, the piano from this far away, the mic input gain has to be adjusted to pick up a wider scope of where the sound source is coming from. The monitor volume, that's helping me decide how loud I want the other parts to be in my ear. And then I can even set, if I want the metronome to be glaringly obvious, I can make that much louder or quieter. And it looks like there's options for if I'm splitting left and right or splitting mixed, depending on your preferences. If you want metronome in both ears or metronome and monitor splitting, those are your options. So setting the metronome settings and the microphone settings is something I do for the parts before I start recording. All right, I think this is gonna work. There we go. Back to our bass part. Yee-hee. So I can put in my metronome. You'll see this. This is gonna look a little strange, but it will work. There I am. Okay, here's my part. If I click this button, it's going to give me a countdown in the tempo that I want. So if I have a 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, 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 I can start recording in that bass line. You'll see how that works. I'll demonstrate it. You'll hear the metronome out loud because it's going to click as I've set that. But in an earpiece, you would not hear the metronome. Okay, here we go. pause the recording there. It asks me right away if I want to keep that or if I want to redo it. So if I know I've made a bad flub, I can go back and re-record right off the gate. If I want to watch what I'm doing instead before I make that choice, I'm going to go to continue. One of the features about acapella that is inherently limiting is that you kind of have to get your track, you kind of have to get it all in one track all at once. Oh, it's still playing. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to keep it. I'll come back to that. So I'm going to click the green arrow. That's a track I want to keep, and it will render. Like I was saying, the tricky thing is that you have to kind of get from start to stop on your track all in one take. So this is where the recording skills for the students are definitely honed to be their most excellent, their most precise recording. I'm happy to report that my students that have been using this app the most have been hearing themselves in new ways and holding themselves to really high levels of scrutiny for self-assessing. Like, oh, I was off that beat a little bit. Oh, I was a little out of tune there. So this is asking students who would record and then self-assess if that's the track they want to keep. And I love that about this program, especially for my teens who might otherwise not be as incentivized to record themselves and self-assess. This is a great skill that you would use the rest of your musician life. Record yourself and self-assess. Now it's in the cause of creating this fun arrangement. So if I've got my bass line and I know I like it, then I can go into one of the other parts. Now, maybe I'm going to take this next frame, and this will be the inner voice that I'm going to put with it. So I can, in my earphones, I'd be able to hear in the monitor, and I'd be able to hear the metronome, and then I sync up my second part to my first part. So I'll click the button again. The sound is not synced up between the app and the live video, but you get the idea. And it would continue with all of the parts layering. I can continue, I can redo them, I can hear two together. If I want to hear just those two together and then I want to practice, let's keep both of those. If I want to practice my melody part, if I want to practice my other voice, after it renders, I can just play what I've got, and I could practice with that endlessly. So practicing along with the recording of myself is another one of those recording skills that we're teaching our teenagers how to do. All right, we'll take that acapella down. That's the basic way the acapella app works. There is a social media component to that platform, which I actually don't use. I use the app to create the collage, and then from the collage, I save that to my camera, and from the camera, I can share it to social media or text it or send it wherever I want. So I'm not as active on the acapella social media app side of it, but I do enjoy that app for the ease of syncing up the tracks with the metronome click. I really like the ease of the collage showing all the parts separately. Those effects are they're not easy to create, but those effects are possible to create in other platforms like Pro Tools or Logic. All of this is just recording basics. This particular app just has it kind of laid out in a streamlined sort of way. So if you are ready to dive in to recording an arrangement that you've been working on, maybe you've been tooling around with My Girl, or maybe you've been tooling around with Journey or something, here are some of the skills you'll need. You'll need to be able to play with a metronome, record yourself with the metronome, self-assess if you are on the beat, if you like your intonation, then you need to be able to record or play along with that recorded version of yourself, and then even up to 4 parts or more, depending on what you're in the mood for. You've got platforms that you can use for your self-recording, your selfie cam, your voice memo app, and then a few of these other apps I'll leave in the comments. Use the recording platform to record as you go to help you shape the arrangement as you're creating it. Sometimes in the recording process, I'll hear, oh, that doesn't work as well in the inner voice. I thought it was going to. I'm going to have to retool that. You can hear that revealed to you in the recording process. Create a scratch track so that you have a place to play around with it that's not your precious final product. Something else in the scratch tracks, you can do multiple takes of the same track. This is one way that we teach our students and ourselves how to hold ourselves to a high standard of quality as far as rhythm lining up and pitch being centered, because there's not a lot of pitch or rhythm adjustments if you're just creating a voice memo or on an app like this. In the more robust programs like Logic and Pro Tools, you can slide a misplaced rhythm or you can slide a misplaced pitch, but these that I just demonstrated are what you see is what you get, what you play is what you get. So the skills that your students will gain from this process will be recording and self-assessing with a metronome, and then using the recorded versions of themselves to inform how they create their arrangement. Any questions about that? Drop those in the comments and we'll follow up again next time. Have fun. Happy recording. See you.